So how's it going, my Comic Chat Army? We're here today with Edward Davis, the creator of Immortals and now the Corruptor. How you doing, Ed?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me back. It's been a while.
It's been way too long. I think it's
Yeah,
been 2 years, right?
yeah, I think so.
What have you been doing in the meantime?
In the meantime, I've been continuing the series Immortal Era. That series just released the eighth issue, so I just finished up a Kickstarter for that one. Actually, in October, that one ended, and just sent out all of the rewards. I spent a weekend just mailing everything out so I could launch the new series, Corruptor. So we're on issue 8 of that one. When it's all said and done, it's a 24 issue series. So now we've reached the official 1/3 of the way through the series. And issue 9, we're working on the colors for that one. So I'm thinking January or February we'll be putting issue 9 on Kickstarter, and that one's going to be the longest issue of Immortal Era yet. It's a 32-page one and an origin of one of our main characters, so we'll get to see his full backstory. And then a brand new series, Corruptor. This one, it's been in the works for a while, but I finally sent the script to my artist and said, "All right, let's make this thing happen." So that one, we're right now we're funding issue 1, but it's actually out already. I brought it to LA Comic Con last weekend, and people seem to, they either were highly offended by the idea of it, or they thought that's so awesome, that's what I need to get. So it's nice to have two choices on the table, because for the longest time, if I couldn't sell them on Immortal Era, I had no other shots. So now you have two different things, and yeah, there's still a chance I can't sell them on either, because they said, "Oh, is this book great for kids?" Not really. So they move on. But the more choices you have, the more opportunities you get for someone to actually buy one of your books. So that was on the table. I had a few people come and actually pick up their Kickstarters already. Said, "Hey, if you back the Kickstarter, you want to come get your book early in your LA Comic Con, come pick them up." So a few people did that, and yeah, the artist is actually almost done with issue 2 of Corruptor for the pencils and inks. So that we should have a pretty quick turnaround. So Immortal Era 9 should be either January or February, and then I'd say maybe 6 weeks later, ready to go. So lots of new stuff going on.
You've been busy,
Yeah,
and I've seen you've been going to a lot of Comic Cons.
I try as I can. I think for me, I mean, you can, things like this online are great, but I like standing in front of a person and just talking the comic book, and you kind of that used car salesman switch flicks on in your head, and you're like, okay, I have one job to sell you this book, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure someone's walking away with a book. And I just like that feeling, that challenge, and then just engaging with the people. They buy your book, they come back the next day and they want to talk about it, and it's just, that's my favorite way to go out there and move books. But it's not the most effective way, because you're limited to, I mean, most of the cons I do are in my surrounding area. So I'm not getting out to other places in the country where there's a lot of people who might want to read the book, but I can't afford to fly from con to con. So I stick with the local ones that I can drive to and hit as many of those as I can. But I'd love to be able to start traveling more, because I've done a few travel cons and they're always great. And you actually get new readers. I have backers that come from Tampa because I did the Tampa Bay Con. I have some from Phoenix because I did the con there, some from Vegas. So they'll keep following the book because they know they're not going to catch you at a con again. You tell them, "Look, I came from California. I won't be here next year, but you want new issues, here's your way to get them."
Yeah. So what is the elevator pitch
The
for?
elevator pitch for Corruptor or Immortal Era, which, or I can give you both because they connect together. So
Yeah.
Immortal Era, that's my ongoing book, and that one I sell it as, okay, this is a post-apocalyptic story 200 years in the future where everyone has mysteriously become immortal. But with their immortality, they haven't gained powers or abilities. They continue to age. They can still get sick. One of the main characters in my story is a decapitated head who's forced to live on. And it centers on a group of 5 heroes who are out seeking relics so they can discover why people became immortal, because for them, the ultimate goal is to bring back the natural life cycle and to save humanity by killing them.
Yep.
And then I take it directly into Corruptor. And I said, now Corruptor is a story that centers on a mafia hitman named Tony Scomparza. He's killed in his final job. And after his death, he's immediately recruited by demons from hell and angels from heaven, because both sides are in a race to gather as many souls as they can before all the portals to the afterlife close and the immortal era begins.
Oh man, that's cool. I like it.
I have it when I do at the con. I just say, okay, I can pitch you both my books in less than a minute, and you know that people seem to like the fact that there's the connection, but they are completely separate. I said, if you read Corruptor, you don't have to know anything about Immortal Era. You can step into that universe and not think, okay, well, I need to now go back and reread 8 issues of Immortal Era to even understand what's going on. It stands fully on its own, but I throw some Easter eggs in there where if you have read Immortal Era, you'll catch Easter eggs. You'll see little characters that have popped up through the story popping up in there. But in general, I want to keep them so that they're separate enough that you don't feel like, okay, now I don't want to, have to buy 9 books to understand something. So each one will function on its own, but the Easter eggs will get in there, and you'll see returning characters that people have been asking me about for a while. So the second issue, we see the return of a reporter from issue 1 of Immortal Era that everybody asked me, when are we going to see that guy again? So we see him back in Corruptor, because by the time our story's taking place in Immortal Era, it's so deep into the future. This guy would be 250 years old. So what good is he going to do in that story? But we can see him in flashbacks because Corruptor takes place the year before Immortal Era begins.
You know how much that would suck to live to be 250 years old?
Yeah, it would not be a pleasant thing. Even if you were ageless, that would be terrible. But when you're still aging, you're going to feel all the pains of growing old way more than we've ever imagined, because you're going to keep growing old. Yeah. You're going to barely be able to move, and you would wish nothing more than death, and you're just stuck alive.
So, what issue do we find out the conclusion of why people can't die?
We find out why people can't die in issue 2. So I give that one right away. And then in issues 3 and beyond, it becomes the quest to find the relics they need to bring death back into the world. Because in issue 2, they actually discover what they're going to need to bring death back. So they know now what they can do, and they just have to actually get through it. And immediately they discover that it's not going to be as easy as they thought, because there's a group of people that are completely content with immortality, and they want nothing more than to keep it the way it is. So they're fighting them along the way. So now they've developed lots of enemies, and these enemies keep growing as the story progresses.
So I guess it's the Illuminati is confirmed.
Yes, and they live in the Immortal Era.
Right. What advice would you give to new creators out there?
I think one of the biggest things that I look at that I didn't do right was networking with other creators. I mean, there's plenty of creators out there that just want to take some money from you. Like, yeah, I'll tell you how to run a Kickstarter, but send me some cash. But there are infinitely more who would love to help you and guide you along the way. So reach out to other creators. Go to a Comic-Con and talk to some of the creators out there. I get people coming to my table all the time to say, okay, I really want to start a comic series. What advice can you give me? And it's, all right, first, make yourself a budget. Don't think, unless you're the artist and the writer and you can do all of it on your own, you're going to need a budget. And if you think, well, I'm going to do it all on my own and I'm going to edit my own book, my advice would be don't. Because one thing writers love is their own words. And if you're your own editor, you're going to be like, no, it's fine. I'm going to keep it exactly like that. You have to have someone who's going to make those tough choices for you, and you just have to let them do it. So even if you can do everything, you can write, you can pencil, you can ink, you can color, still get yourself an editor. So find your budget and save some money. I put away over $5,000 before I even looked for an artist because I wanted to make sure I could afford all the pieces that came with the book. And then talk to the other creators out there. Go on Instagram, go on Facebook, find other creators that you see doing indie comic books and send them a message. Don't send them a message with your link to your Kickstarter and start asking for money, but send them a message saying, hey, I'm thinking of launching a Kickstarter. Do you have any advice? Do something like that, because nothing irks me more than when I've never talked to them, we've never engaged in any way, and they're already out there with their hand out like, hey, come and support my Kickstarter, even though you don't know who I am. But get to know them, find communities of people who will share your projects, who will put your project in their updates. There's plenty of them out there because that costs them nothing, and you're sharing their project, they're sharing yours, and you're building that community and hopefully bringing some people over. So find the people in the community, learn who they are, and just work with them, because so many people can help you out. Because when I went in, I was fully blind on everything. I had no idea what I was doing. I just thought, oh, everybody else is doing a Kickstarter. Why don't I do one of those? And you learn the hard way. It's not just, okay, perfect, you have some Instagram followers, they're all going to buy your book. Odds are none of them are going to buy your book, a handful at best. So you need to find other ways, and the people that know are always happy to share.
Are you trying to get your comic into comic shops yet?
I haven't looked at that. I know I've talked to a couple of the creators that I know that have actually got in through previews, or I don't know what, I know there's 2 distribution companies now, and they've found ways to get it in. So I'm looking at that as one option, but most of the ones I talk to say they end up making less than they would have if they had just run a Kickstarter. So it's because you have to invest a lot to print the maximum amount of copies. And when I do a Kickstarter, I don't print way more than I need. So there's a lot of things in it. It's something that I definitely want to explore because, again, like we were talking about with cons, I'm my region. I can plaster my book all around California, but I'm missing, 90% of the market still. If every comic shop in California had my book, I'm still missing too many comic shops to think of. So trying to find a way to get it into more would be great.
How is the indie comic present in California?
It's good. I mean, the more cons you do, the more people you see over and over again, and you realize there's people right down the street that are indie comic creators, and they're all over the place. And that's another good thing to network, because you let each other know, hey, there's a little show coming out, 20 miles from our house right now, and then you're always sharing what's going on, because I find those, things like LA are really fun, but those little cons, you seem to get a lot more engagement from the audience because they're happy to be supporting a local artist.
Yeah. And they're not there to see the celebrity of the day or whoever's there.
Yeah. Yeah, the celebrity of the day doesn't exist when you go to a con, in Banning or Paris, which are small little places around us that have cons, and they're generally held in a high school gymnasium. They're small scale, but the community that comes out, they're just passionate about comic books, and they're really looking for that new thing to read. A lot of them, they're bored by Marvel and DC and every random new crossover event that's coming out, and they're excited like, hey, this is something new. It's a fresh voice, and I want to see what's going on. And they may love it, they may hate it, but they want to give it a shot.
Oh yeah. Everybody that's doing indie comics right now is killing it. I feel like if all the creators could come together and find a way to do distribution, I think everybody could win.
I think so. And there has to be a way, because there's some that are doing distribution already and they're doing fairly well. But if everyone pooled together and found a way to distribute, I think that could be the ultimate win for the indie community, because it would be getting these great stories out. Because I have my book on K, but I back huge amounts of books because there's so many great comics out there. I think in the last 2 months, I've bought like 3 books in my local comic shop, but 30 books on Kickstarter.
Yeah. Where are you going to be at in 24?
The next few cons that I have, I'm going to be doing one in Pasadena. It's a small one-day con. And then the next one after that will be WonderCon. And that one is in Anaheim, and it's run by the same people who do San Diego Comic-Con. So that one is a big one. It does have minor celebrity presence, but it's just a really good con. I've done that one for the last 3 years, and it's one where I will see some regulars that go to it every year and come and want to kind of fill up whatever they don't have. So those are the only two I have scheduled right now, but it's just because a lot of things, they're just in the application process. When the new year rolls in, then a lot of the new ones will open up. So my goal is always to hit at least one show a month, and I try to find the local ones. I will probably do one in Vegas again because that's drivable to me, and so is Phoenix. So I'll try to do some cons out that direction because anything I can drive to is nice. I mean, it's nice like LA. I just drove home and there and back every day. But if you don't have to take the airplane, it's nice because what I discovered is getting comic books on an airplane is not an easy thing because they're so heavy. You have to be very strategic to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. I would imagine that would be tough. So, dead or alive, who would you like to make a comic book with?
I would love to make a comic book. I would love to have McFarlane do art for me. He's one of my favorite artists. I grew up with getting hooked on his Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And even when he was creating Venom and everything like that, I loved his work. And then as far as writers go, my favorite writer is still Neil Gaiman. So I would love to collaborate with him. Like, okay, let's put our brains together and create a wild story because I'd love to kind of tap into his imagination for a bit.
Oh yeah, I think it would just be awesome to watch those old guys just work.
Mm-hmm.
It would. Yeah, I think that'd be so cool.
I mean, I would love just to have McFarlane do a cover for me, let alone the interior art. I mean, if he could just do a cover for the book, it would be incredible. Just thinking about how his style would work for what I'm creating.
All right, so you would get him just to do the next issue of one of your books?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
No, just if you have a chance, head over to Kickstarter and look at the Kickstarter campaign for Corruptor. We're on issue 1. It's funded now. We're hoping to unlock some stretch goals. So it's going to be running for the next 7 days. It closes next weekend. So head over there, and if you'd like to check out more about Immortal Era, Corruptor, and all of my series, head over to finishlinecomics.com or Finish Line Comics on all the social media, and you can see what's going on. We're going to start sharing some of the artwork for issue 9 next week. So some of those colors have just come back, and it's incredible looking stuff. The colorist is just really doing a great job again. So we're going to start sharing out some of those new images.
Who is your artist and colorist?
My artist is Cesar Oliveira. He's been working with me since the start on Immortal Era. He also does the art for Corruptor. And then my colorist, it's Maya, and I think it's like Opasic. I always mispronounce her last name. And she's doing colors for Immortal Era. And then Paris Wells is doing colors for Corruptor. And I just started working with him for the first time. He's someone he had been messaging me for years, saying, do you have any projects coming up, anything I can work on? And I told him, just be patient. I got one. Your name is on it when it finally comes. And it took like 2 years before I finally said, okay, that book I was telling you about, it's ready to go. So he works colors for Corruptor, and then Maya has been doing colors on the second story arc. So my first colorist, she got hired at Netflix and got a bigger and better job. I can't afford to pay her now. So I brought in Maya, and she's done a great job kind of coming back in, and it looks seamless. You wouldn't look at it and think, oh, wow, that's so much worse or better. She found a way to kind of match the color palettes that Viviana was doing so that we have a seamless reading experience.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come talk with me, Ed.
I appreciate you having me.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comic Chat Authority? Oh, come on. Subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.